See, for example, this is my client web page, and this is my client web page, and this is my mobile app, whatever it is, and this is my server side, whatever it is, and this is my database. So clearly try to understand what we are going to be working with this. This is something like server. This is something like server, and this is something like database DB, and this is something like web application, web app, and this is something like mobile app, mobile, and somewhere you will be having some mediator between the client page to server page. That mediator is called JSON. That mediator is called JSON. Okay. So what this JSON is going to be working for, what is the roles and responsibilities of this JSON, we need to try to understand today. JSON is JavaScript object notation, which is going to be working as a glue point or mediator between the client pages or client side to server side. See, I'm going to be requesting something to the server. So whenever we are going to be giving request, that request should be in the form of the JSON file. And this JSON file is the global file, which is going to be understandable for the client side to server side. See, we are sending request now. We are sending request. And this request is going to be sending in the form of JSON from client system to server system. And this is the global format. And whenever you want to receive the response, that response also from server to JSON. So from server data is coming. From database, data is coming to the server, and server is going to be process the data, and it is going to be giving you API, that API in the form of JSON data. And that JSON data again sending back to the client. See, whatever the request response processors. So every application which is going to be having request and response processes. Request response processes are completely depends on JSON data format. See, JSON is not programming. JSON is simple data format. So here we will be having some JavaScript, whatever it is. And here we'll be having something like Python from server side, and client side we have JavaScript. Whenever we are going to be having request response procedures or processes, both are going to be communicating in the form of JSON. Try to understand. This is very, very simple. This is very, very simple. Okay, let me take you one application. Let me take one application. Suppose I'm going to be working with Amazon. Yeah. Coming to Amazon. See, if I'm searching for laptops here, so the request is going to be sending to the Amazon server. And how this data is going to be processed, how this data is going to be displayed in the part of the client page. This data coming as a form of JSON data. As a form of JSON data, from that particular JSON data only, we are going to be fetching the data on top of the client page. So maybe my point you got to understand or not. One more simple example I will tell. For example, data coming from MongoDB or data coming from MySQL. See, whenever data coming from MySQL, this data sending to the Python Django. This data sending to the Django. Django always communicating with MySQL. And Django taking this data and giving to the JSON form. See how my mobiles or laptops data is coming from Amazon server. I'm telling very, very simple example. MySQL to Django, Django to JSON, JSON to JavaScript, JSON to JavaScript to HTML, JavaScript to HTML data is binding. And finally HTML can be displayed. On top of the browser. That's it. End of the day, data need to be shown on the browser. See, I am going to be requesting you for laptops. So say in Amazon, I'm going to be asking laptops. When I ask for laptops, I got a lot of laptops data. See how this laptops data is coming. Data coming from MySQL to my Django, Django to JSON, JSON to JS, JS to HTML, HTML to browser. That is a way of application working process. Okay, so let me work with you JSON. So JSON is JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation. JavaScript object notation. And why JSON? One important question. Why JSON? Why JSON? JSON for store or exchange data. Store or exchange data between client and server. Between client and server. Client and server. Okay, the very important point. Why JSON for? JSON for store and exchange data between data client and server. That's it. And JSON, very important. JSON is lightweight. Lightweight interchangeable format. Interchangeable format. Lightweight interchangeable format. JSON is a lightweight interchangeable format, and JSON is a language independent. For every language, it could be understandable. Language independent. JSON is language independent, and JSON is open source. Open source. And JSON used for load data for web applications and mobile applications. Mostly mobile applications. Okay, so that's all for JSON is. And one more point, JSON have two formats. JSON have two formats. One important format is object format. Another format is array format. JSON object, JSON array. See, one is a JSON object, one is a JSON array. See, why this object and array, and what is the structure of the object and what is the structure of the array, we should understand. JSON object is collection of key value pair. And JSON object starts with curly braces and closed with curly braces. And JSON object key must be string. Compulsory. Key must be string, encodes with double quotes. Or enclosed with double quotes. Enclosed with double quotes. Compulsory double quotes needed. Single quotes not allowed. Like this one. This is something like name. Compulsory. And JSON key value pair. Separates with comma. JSON key value pair separates with comma. Yeah. Separates with comma. And last key value pair. We don't have comma. So that is the object basically. So let me tell you one simple syntax for the object. So something like a key and colon value, comma. So multiple key value pairs you can able to design. Something like key value pair. That's it. This is object syntax and how object is going to be executing and working, all these things. And one more thing is array. What is array? So very simple. JSON array is collection of values. JSON array is collection of values. And JSON object Value can be any kind of data. That is the one more important point. Value can be any kind of data. Any kind of data. And okay, so value. Value can be any kind of data. Value separates with comma. Value separates with comma. This is very important point again. So let me write syntax for the array now. This is the array. In array, you'll be having the value. For example, the first value should be something like a number, comma. Second value something like a string, comma. A third value something like an object, comma. Fourth value something like array, comma. Fifth value something like a null value. Okay, that's it. This is array format. Okay, let me take one simple example. How this object and array both are going to be working and storing. There's a folder, AV class. So it's going to be followed by, and this is JSON notes. Okay, let me create one JSON file. How JSON file will be? Save it as first one object. Suppose JSON object dot JSON format dot JSON compulsory. So one more important note point I need to give: every JSON file stored with, or every JSON file saved with the dot JSON format. Every JSON file saved with the dot JSON format. Very important point you have to remember. Okay, coming to the object JSON, we'll be having curly braces open, curly braces close. Let me give the employee details. For example, EMP name. So EMP name something like Divya. EMP qualification something like BTech. Okay, single quotes, double quotes. Single quotes will not allow. Just take double quotes. Okay. And EMP salary something like 45,000. Okay, that's all. This is an object. This is an employee object at the top of a JSON file. Okay, let me validate it. How to validate JSON I will show. There is a website called JSON validator, linted.com. Go to the JSON linted.com and paste your file, paste your data. Whatever the data we got placed, that data just validate it. Click on validate JSON button. Click on validate JSON button. You can able to see a valid JSON. That JSON is a valid JSON. It's not a error JSON, error contained JSON. This is a valid JSON. I got a valid JSON. So when you got a valid JSON, you can just work with that. That is no issues. Now let me go with the JSON array and saved as employees EMPS JSON array. Array.json. And again, this is the JSON file. Okay, let me go with the array format, comma. Okay, comma. So let me change this to have it. And he's from BTech and he's going to be having 50,000. And here something like Srinivas. And he is from MCA. And salary will be 44,000. Can you see and observe? This is array, and array is the collection of objects. Every object separated with the comma, and last object do not put a comma. Every object separated with comma. Object nothing but it is a value type. So every object is a value. I told you. Object is a value.
Yeah.
And here this is a value, and this is a value. Maybe you'll be having a different kind of data. For example, you'll be having some other kind of data. Not only objects. Maybe you can have something like location, This is the kind of data location. I just want to say the location. The location is a string data. Okay, string data. Okay, so location is something like Hyderabad. I'm giving Hyderabad. This is string data, comma. Okay, that is what actually the thing is. Let me give you validate. Paste in the JSON complete thing and click on validate JSON. Yeah, validate JSON. We don't have any issue with the JSON file. That JSON file is a very proper JSON file. This is not going to be a this is not going to be having any issues and contains errors. Okay, all this is okay, fine. This is the format of the JSON. First of all, learn JSON, how to write JSON, complex type of JSON also you have to learn. There is a website called, let me show the website. 1 second. 1 second, I will give you. Yeah, this is what actually is in this order. Let me take one website. Okay, search for sample JSON files. Sample JSON. Can you see employee JSON structure? Employee JSON structure somewhere, some structure we got. Okay, so let me paste this one, and this is the employee JSON, employee object, employee dot JSON. Can you see what happened with this? And this is what kind of data, Divya? This is what kind of data? Object or array?
Object.
As this is object. Why? Because of object starts with curly braces and closed with the curly braces. Array starts with the square braces and closed with the square braces. This is object. So I told you, right? So this is object, array. This is array. And JSON array starts with JSON array starts with square braces, closed with square braces. That's it. And here we got to understand this is object kind of data. Okay, so for example, there are multiple JSON file hierarchy with 100 files, 100 records. Let's see. Okay. Okay, let us go with that. File open. Oh my God, this is a very big one. And the root level, what is the root level now? Root level is object. You can see that. Is this object or not?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is object. And object is going to be having collection of, see, fields. Fields is the key and this is the value. Object is collection of key value pair. You know that first. Object is collection of key value pairs. Key is fields. Value is array. Fields is the key. Value is the array. So inside this array, again objects are there. Again objects are there. And inside again, internally, one more key value pair is there. And again, in this value, again, we have the array. See, this is a complex JSON. This is a complex JSON. Any kind of JSON we don't have. We don't have any issues. Okay, let me validate it. Is this a valid JSON or not? Let me validate it. So you can download any one of the JSON files and you can do practice. Okay, so let me go for JSON-linted.com. We try to work with the validate here. Validate JSON. Yeah, valid JSON. JSON is valid JSON. We don't have any issue with this. So we try to fetch the complete data in the top of the UI. That is okay. And before that, I just want to tell you people how this is going to be working. See, we have the JSON data. So JSON always operates from JS to server. Something like server. Okay, so find here. This is having two formats. This is having two formats. One is object. One is object. One is a. That is also. Now find here. There are two things. How to send the data from JS to JSON. First of all, here some process will be there. JS to JSON, some process will be there. JS to JSON, some process is there. So what is the process? Whenever you want to send a request, so in the requesting format, JS to JSON data is going to be sent with a method called JSON.stringify. JSON.stringify. JSON.stringify is the method which is going to be sending the data from JS to JSON. And when you get a response data, response will be triggered. See how response is going to be working from JS to JSON. You got the JSON data from server, and how that data converting to the JS is an important part. So here this one. Here this one. When you go to JSON data, so this time this is not stringify. This time this is parse. Got my point? Understand? One is a sending request, one is a receiving response. So whenever we are sending some data request to the server in the part of the JSON file, first of all, JavaScript data converting into the stringifying, converting into the JSON. Then only it is understandable by the server. Or you are taking response from the server. Whenever you are taking response from the server, you have the JSON content. That content is going to be passed with the JS content, and JS content triggered to the HTML file. That's all enough. Got my point?
Yeah.
Maybe your JS object or JS object or JS array will be here, and here also JS object or JS array will be here. You have two kind of collections in the JavaScript. I will tell you JavaScript variables. I told I think variables about, and JSON also having two types. So one is the object, one is the array. And here also JSON also having one is the object, one is the array. Got my point? Now what I want to do, I will take first of all stringify process. How to work with the stringify. Then we will move to the parse. So can I go with the stringify? JSON.stringify.html.